In contemplation, allow your awareness to be filled with the largest thing you can imagine and the tiniest thing you can conceive. Let both live fully in your awareness, side by side. Not as opposites, not in contradiction, but in shared presence. And as this seeming contrast fills your awareness, ask gently, what lies between these two? Where does the vast become no longer vast? Where does the tiny cease to be what it was? Notice not the answer, but the space the question creates. A sense of spaciousness, a subtle widening. Here begins our exploration into what holokinetics calls the movement of the whole, a science of life not as something to master or dissect, but as something to attune to, something ever emerging, ever new. Life, it's not a fixed structure. It is not a series of events marching through time like stones placed neatly on a path. Oh no. Life is a vibrational flux field, a field of sentient movement in which everything arises, moment to moment, in a kind of luminous newness. And this is not a metaphor. This is not abstraction. This is the closest language we have to describe what it is to be truly alive. Not as self, not as an observer, but as the very field in which perception happens. Now you might ask, but what does that mean? It means that you are not just looking at the world. You are not just interacting with it. You are the world in the act of recognizing itself. There is no fixed you here, only patterns of sensing, ripples of energy and attention that for a time call themselves me. And then, like breath, dissolve. So let's return to that earlier question. What is the space between the largest and the smallest? Holokinetics invites us to understand that space is not a gap. It is not a boundary or a threshold. It is what we could call a paradox. It is the very place where the form of something, planet, particle, self, begins to lose its rigidity, where matter, once considered solid, becomes receptive, where the fields that hold particles together soften into possibility. This is the point where our material existence opens, and it opens into what holokinetics names the non-local field, a space of awareness beyond time, beyond identity. Think of it like this. As the tiniest particles begin to loosen their grip, as their boundaries soften, the so-called walls of our cellular reality become translucent. This is not a fantasy, it is a gentle shift in vibration, a change in how awareness interacts with the field. And in that shift, something profound is revealed. The self we think we are, the bounded, separate identity, is not solid, it is not final. It is a field, a shimmering emergence of attention in motion. Okay, so now imagine that very shift is the Big Bang. Not one that happened billions of years ago, but one that is always happening. A Big Bang in every moment, where the rigidity of time, the solidity of space, is burst open by the effervescent newness of life itself. This isn't a cosmic explosion. It's an opening, an unfolding, an ever-fresh arising of life that cannot be contained in linear thought. And you are not witnessing this Big Bang. You are this opening. Here we call it the science of newness, a shift from the need to know to the courage and the openness of not knowing. Because in this not knowing there is space, and in space, emergence. And in emergence, there is life. Not your life, not my life, just life. Free of story, free of ownership, yet alive with meaning born of the moment. So, we ask again, what lies between the largest and the tiniest? Where does the line dissolve? Where does the form fall away? The answer, it's not a place, it is not a point. It is a way of perception. Or maybe, better said, a way of not perceiving, where the habitual frameworks collapse. Here, the field of awareness we once called self begins to soften. It dissolves into the greater field of the whole. The rigid becomes permeable, the known becomes mysterious again. And in that mystery, something truly magical begins. A cultivation of the opening. A tending to the ever-present Big Bang that is this breath, this moment, this not yet known emergence. So, let it be an invitation, not to grasp, not to conclude, but to live with what is forming. To live as part of a field that is not separate from what it perceives. To feel the pulse of the field as your own. To soften the boundary. To rest in the paradox. And to remember, here there is nothing to fix, nothing to claim, only to be present as life lives through you. This is the cultivation, this is the opening, this is the moment, and it is always now.